Hello everyone, so for today's video, I'm going to share my output on my subject Lives and Works of Rizal. But before that, let me introduce myself first. I am Anizza Tacsiat, a third-year student taking Bachelor of Science in Tourism Management at International School of Asia and the Pacific. Going back to our topic is the Sucesos de las Islas Filipinas of Antonio de Morga. But before that, let me define first what is Sucesos de las Islas Filipinas. Las Islas Filipinas means the Philippine island in English and was named in honor of King Philip II of Spain. While Sucesos means the work of an honest observer, a versatile bureaucrat who knew the workings of the administration from the inside. So what is all about Sucesos de las Islas Filipinas? Sucesos de las Islas Filipinas is one of the most important work of the Philippines about the colonization of Spain, published by Antonio de Morga in Mexico on 1609. This explains the political, social, and economical aspects of a colonizer and a colonized country. The book is also based on the experience and observation of Antonio de Morga and annotated by Jose Rizal with a prologue by Dr. Ferdinand Blumentritt. Antonio de Morga is a Spanish lawyer and a government official during the 17th century. He is a historical anthropologist, an author of Sucesos de las Islas Filipinas. He wrote the first lay formal history of the Philippines conquest by Spain, and he is a doctorate in canon and civil law. Antonio de Morga wrote that the purpose for writing Sucesos was so he could chronicle the deeds achieved by our Spaniards, the discovery, conquest, and conversation of the Filipinas Islands, as well as various fortunes that they have from time to time in the great kingdoms and among the pagan peoples surrounding the islands. So now let's move on Rizal's annotation of Sucesos de las Islas Filipinas. So his objectives is to analyze Rizal's idea on how to rewrite Philippine history. The second one is to compare and contrast Rizal and Morga's different views about Filipinos and Philippine culture. So what led Jose Rizal to Morga's work? Rizal was an earnest seeker of truth and his marked him as a historian. He had burning desire to know exactly the condition of the Philippines when the Spaniard came ashore to the islands. His theory was the country was economically self-sufficient and prosperous, entertained the idea that it had a lively and vigorously community. He believed that the conquest of the Spaniards contributed in part of the culture decline of the Philippines' rich traditions and culture. Rizal also left Morga to become more objective than the religious writer whose accounts included many miracle stories. Morga, compared to religious chroniclers, was more sympathetic to the Indios, and finally Morga was not only an eyewitness but a major actor in the events he narrates. Rizal's second consideration for the choice of Morga was that it was the only civil, as opposed to religious or ecclesiastical, history of the Philippines written during the colonial period. The third consideration for the choice of Morga was Rizal's opinion that his secular account was more objective, more trustworthy than those written by the religious missionaries, which were liberally sprinkled with tales of chronicles and apparitions. The fourth consideration in Rizal's choice of the Morga was it appeared more sympathetic, at least in parts of the Indios, in contrast to the prior accounts, many of which are biased on downright racist in tone and interpretation. The fifth and the last consideration was that Morga was an eyewitness and therefore a primary source of the Philippines and its people at the point of first contact with Spain. So how did Jose Rizal know about Morga's work? Rizal found the book while he was in London at the British Museum's reading room. He had copied the whole 351 pages of the book and annotated every chapter of it. It was the first historical work on the Philippines by a Filipino. It is the first history written from the point of view of the colonized, not to the colonizer. Rizal's annotation to the Book of Morga, Sucesos de las Islas Filipinas. So first, straightforward historical annotations where Rizal amplifies corrects the original. The second one, the annotations which though historically based reflect his anti-clerical bias. And I believe that everything has a purpose. So Rizal's purpose of annotating Morga's work is to awaken the consciousness of the Filipinos regarding their glorious ways of the past. The second one is to correct what has been distorted about the Philippines due to the Spanish conquest. And last is to prove that the Filipinos are civilized, advanced, and even more coming of the Spaniards. Because Rizal believed that the people of the Philippines had a culture on their own before the coming of the Spaniards. The people of the pre-Hispanic Philippines is advanced, has high literacy rate, self-sufficient, and has smooth foreign relations. Filipinos were decimated, demoralized, exploited, and ruined by the Spanish colonization. The present state of the Philippines was not necessarily superior to its past. In his annotation, he included the colonial history of the Philippines being a prolonged periods of suffering that many people have been subjected to. The Philippines was depopulated, impoverished, and deported, astounded, and metaphor with no confidence in their past, is still without faith in her present and without faltering hope in the future. And now let's proceed to Ferdinand Blumentreit's prologue to Sucesos de las Islas Filipinas. He wrote it in Spanish even though German in his native language. Encouraged Rizal to write about the Philippines' pre-colonial history, he also praised Rizal's works as scholarly and well thought out. Noted that the book is so rare that very few libraries has it regarded it like a treasure. He noticed that Rizal had committed the mistakes of many modern historians who judge events in the past. He said that Rizal shouldn't condemn Catholicism even though they didn't do any effort to suppress calls for reform. He should just keep the critic about religious orders in the Philippines. So, as I end my topic, the Sucesos as annotated by Jose Rizal appeared for the first time in the Philippines 68 years later when a publisher in Manila published the new work in 1958 to contribute his bit to the national effort to honor Rizal. The present work is the sixth volume of the series of writings of Jose Rizal, which the Jose Rizal National Centennial Commission has now published in commemoration of his birth. So, according to our national hero, Jose Rizal, he said that to foretell the destiny of a nation, it is necessary to open the books that tell of her past. So that ends my discussion to Rizal's annotation Sucesos de las Islas Filipinas by Antonio de Morga. So I hope you learned something. Thank you for watching and God bless everyone.